We can see that Virginia Woolf into the Lighthouse uses modernist characteristics to discuss issues of gender, art, or the passing of time, which were very present in her life. Some of the modernist devices that she employs are the notion of relativity of time, or the stream of consciousness device she uses to understand the inner thoughts and motivations behind each action. However, to understand the reasons behind the issues of gender, art, and the passing of time, I believe that providing the author's context is crucial as it shaped her way of understanding reality. Virginia Woolf was a modernist and experimental writer, and we can see this through her use of the stream of consciousness device, used to capture the inner processes of the mind of the characters. Furthermore, relativity is a crucial idea and plays an important role for modernists, as they believe that no accurate universal framework can explain reality. This notion, after Einstein found the fourth dimension in the theory of relativity, became one of the crucial notions of modernism. T.S. Eliot brings to the present images of the past, so we can see the relativity of time. The depiction of workers going to the offices paralleling the suns in Dante's Inferno exemplifies this. We can see that modernists believed in the relativity of time, as the present changes the past while the past belongs to the present. The past and present are not considered as belonging to a different dimension.
Unlike James Joyce or T.S. Eliot, Virginia Woolf was a first-class modern woman raised under Victorian morality and values. Woolf had periods of inert depression, had pulling headaches, and suffered physical pain. According to some researchers, she might have been sexually harassed. Paradoxically, Woolf didn't go to school or university, even if she received a Victorian education, and she did not have the chance to compare with other children, which might have worsened her mental illnesses. As previously mentioned, she underwent several mental diseases, and she might have suffered from schizophrenia and depression, as she heard voices that told her that she was useless and ultimately led her to commit suicide. One of the main events that affected her literary career was the move in 1994 from a Victorian household to Bloomsbury, a place that became an experimental meeting place for artists who seek creativity. She was strongly encouraged to end with conventions. She believed that immoral human constructions should be broken. She developed avant-garde techniques and was self-educated at home. After moving to Bloomsbury, she met the British artistic elite and met prestigious authors like T.S. Eliot. Woolf believed that for a woman to write, she should have money and space to avoid being influenced by men. She published her books at the Hogarth Press, and each of her works became famous. Some examples are Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, To the Lighthouse, 1927, Orlando, 1928, The Waves, 1931, or Between the Acts, 1941. As previously mentioned, some literary critics believe that Virginia's father had abused her, and she was a very sentimental person and had nervous breakdowns and issues of sexuality, as she might have been bisexual. She is famous for her experimental prose. She was bisexual, and her lover inspired her for the main immortal character who changes her sex, Orlando, in the novel Orlando, 1928. Her works question ordinary perceptions of the world, such as the perceptions of time. As we can see, the notion of time varies radically in the three sections of To the Lighthouse. The novel To the Lighthouse is clearly divided into three sections, each representing a different period. Virginia Woolf, like other modernists, wanted to show the relativity of time in his novel, the strong connection between subjectivity and time. The first section, called The Window, takes place over one particular day, in a few hours, and focuses on the Ramsay family and their guests while they spend a day at their summer house on the Isle of Skye in Scotland. The second section, i.e., Time Passes, takes place over a period of 10 years and focuses on the constant changes and the passing of time during which the family home is abandoned and falls into disrepair, resembling The Family. However, this long period is paradoxically written in about 20 pages. The final section, The Lighthouse, returns to the present day and narrates the Ramsay family's attempt to make a trip to visit the lighthouse. Throughout the novel, Woolf uses the stream of consciousness device to explore the characters' inner thoughts and emotions. She also delves into themes such as the passage of time or the difficulties of communication and understanding between individuals. In the excerpt that belongs to A Room of One's Own, we can see that Woolf mentions that it is easier to remember poets before the war than after the war because poetry before the war had a common sense of humanism that was lost after the brutality and harsh consequences of the war, which had polarized and divided society, so it was more difficult to grasp human feelings. However, as Woolf mentions, the living poets express a feeling that is actually being made and turned out of us at the moment, 2160. The living poets say this because the way contemporary readers perceive the world has changed so radically that each author has their perceptions and draws their vision of reality, which is no longer shared by society due to the notion of relativity and subjectivity. Moreover, regarding illusion and truth, she mentions, yes, indeed, which was the truth and which was the illusion, I asked myself, 2160. Through these words, she wants to express that the world perceived by the perceiving subject is purely subjective and is strongly related to the notion that everything is relative. As previously mentioned, we can see the relativity in how the 3 chapters of To the Lighthouse are distributed. The first part elapses 2 hours, however, she provides details and devotes 150 pages to this first section, The Window. Objectively speaking, the years of the war are supposed to be the main focus and the period where more action happens, but Virginia decides to turn things upside down. In the last part, i.e., The Lighthouse, she also devotes a considerable amount of pages, and as in the first section, the actual time elapsed is less than a day. We can see that in the second part, the traumas of the war are suppressed, and therefore, she employs only around
20 pages to talk about the war and draws attention to the form and to the relativity of time but not to the content. Woolf questioned the perception of reality and wanted to understand how it works. Therefore, the relativity of time is crucial as time is not an objective construction. Furthermore, the house and the island symbolize reality, as an island has palpable limits. Apart from that, it also involves the idea of family, as it is a limited and solid construction. These two constructs interact with each other, as we can see through the strong connection between the family and the house, because when the house is abandoned, the family suffers. On the other hand, the lighthouse could symbolize the dreams, goals, and possible bright future that seemed to arrive but never reached. Although Virginia, in a letter that she wrote to her friend Vita Sackville West, mentioned that there was not a particular symbolism attached to the lighthouse and that it was vague so that each spectator could subjectively coin a symbol. We can see how Virginia Woolf employs the stream of consciousness device in the novel to show the inner thoughts and motives for each reaction. The story is related to the emotional feelings of each character, although they are intertwined. However, as previously mentioned, the novel focuses more on the form than on action. Virginia might have wanted to imply that due to the obsession generated by reaching a goal, we center too much on the goal, the end, and we do not live the moment. Mr. Ramsay represents this obsession that leads to frustration and to the consequence of not enjoying the present, as he is only obsessed with his career and wants to be remembered. We can see that this obsession is shared with his son James, as James gets obsessed with the trip to the lighthouse and as Mr. Ramsay does not enjoy the present. If we delve into an analysis of the characters, Mrs. Ramsay is portrayed as a traditional Victorian mother who supports the idea of family. She is constantly trying to fix disharmonies and wants reality to be coherent, intelligible, and solid, as she wants to marry people and perpetuate the hegemonic ruling structure through the conception of family. We can see that this character is unable to accept the irrationality of life. Moreover, Lily Briscoe, the artist, also shares that she wants to understand reality and portray it. She means to crystallize a particular image that can tell us something about reality. They are both interested in making sense of reality, but both have the urge and need to create harmony and coherence, although instead of through social relations, Lily does it through painting. Moreover, it is through the stream of consciousness that Virginia Woolf captures the inner feelings, motivations and thoughts, which can be spontaneous motivations like James wanting to go to the lighthouse, or more conscious perceptions like Mr. Ramsay's insecurities and feeling that he deserves more as an academic and wants to be remembered to the posterity. In addition, marriage, another human construction used to maintain hegemony, presents women with difficulties with a particular role, as they have attached expectations that they must fulfill. We can see how Mr. Ramsay manipulates his wife to maintain the traditional hegemonic structure, the patriarchal marriage, although men also have expectations to fulfill. We can see that Mr. Ramsay, as well as Charles Tansley, a former student, are full of insecurities and complexes, which makes them arrogant towards women. They seem to try to demonstrate that they are better than women while, at the bottom of their hearts, they depreciate themselves. On the other hand, Mr. Banks does not belong to this traditional structure, so he is more interested in understanding Lily's perception of art. Lily's approach to art represents the process of self-awareness, as she wants to find her own space, and it is also a challenge to traditional gender roles and hegemonic patriarchal structures. Finally, Mr. Ramsay, with James and Lily, decides to go to the lighthouse, and in the end, Lily becomes free as she gets rid of the imposed structures of family, home, the preconceived notions of art, or marriage. On the other hand, James perpetuates the attitudes of Mr. Ramsay. To conclude, the author wants to focus on relativity, and even the lighthouse, which is a solid structure, goes on and off, which implies that it is the end of the family and the beginning of a new generation, as Mrs. Ramsay, Prue and Andrew die, and Mr. Ramsay becomes old.